You know that nagging feeling, right? That thing you know you should be doing, but you just can't? Well, what if everything we've been told about why we procrastinate, that it's all about laziness or a lack of willpower, is just plain wrong? Today, we're going to look at procrastination in a totally new way, one that might just change how you see your own habits for good.
I mean, come on, we can all relate to this. You've got a huge deadline looming, but suddenly, alphabetizing your spice rack feels like the most critical mission on the planet. It's a feeling most of us know, intimately.
For so long, the story has been super simple. People who procrastinate are lazy. They're undisciplined. End of story. But what if that's not the story at all? What if there's something much deeper, something more emotional, pulling the strings?
All right, let's just get right to it and bust the biggest myth out there. This isn't about willpower, it's about feelings.
This is the absolute core of it. We're not actually avoiding the task, we're avoiding the uncomfortable feelings that the task kicks up. Things like stress, anxiety, or that deep down fear that maybe we're not good enough to do it well. So procrastination becomes our escape hatch. It gives us this temporary relief from all those negative emotions. It's a short-term fix for a much deeper problem.
So why is that short-term fix so darn tempting? To really get that, we need to look under the hood at our own brain chemistry. Turns out our brains can get literally wired to prefer putting things off.
Okay, so let's talk about dopamine. People call it the motivation molecule. Basically, when you do something that feels good or rewarding, your brain releases a little hit of dopamine, and that makes you want to do it again. The problem? Our world today is just a minefield of easy dopamine hits.
And here it is, the modern dilemma. On one side, you've got the stuff that gives you an instant, easy rush of dopamine. A like on Instagram, beating a level in a game, that little ding of a notification, boom, instant reward. And on the other side? Well, that's the important stuff. The deep work, the big projects that offer a reward way down the line. So your brain, being the smart but kind of lazy organ it is, starts looking for the easy win. It takes the path of least resistance. Why write a boring report when you can get a dozen little feel-good hits from scrolling a feed? It becomes this vicious cycle. We get so used to those little rewards that the hard, meaningful work just feels even more boring and even less appealing. So, naturally, we push it off. Okay, so we've got the brain chemistry down, but what are the actual emotions that are powering this whole cycle of avoidance? Let's peel back the layers and look at the feelings we're so desperate to run away from.
First, I want you to look at this number. If you procrastinate, you are so far from being alone. I mean, studies show that a staggering 80 to 95% of college students procrastinate. This is not some personal failure. It is a nearly universal part of being human.
These are the real bad guys. When a task makes us feel anxious, or it pokes at our fear of not being good enough, or maybe it just reminds us of some time we failed in the past, our brain's number one job is to protect us. And it protects us by making us avoid that feeling. The real fight isn't with your to-do list. It's with these powerful emotions. And researcher Dr. Kristin Neff just hits the nail on the head here. The fear of failure is a huge driver of procrastination. Our brain has this weird logic that goes, hey, if I never start it, I can't possibly fail at it. I mean, it's totally flawed logic, of course, but in that moment, emotionally, it feels safe.
And the research totally backs this up. A study found that this idea of self-critical perfectionism, that little voice in your head that says nothing is ever good enough, is one of the strongest signs someone will procrastinate. The pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect becomes so overwhelming that it's just paralyzing. It feels easier to do nothing at all.
Okay, so we know it's emotional and we know it's tied to our brain's reward system. But here's the good news. We can actually do something about it. We can work to rewire our brains. So let's get into some real, practical tools you can start using like today.
First up is this idea of a dopamine detox. The whole point is to reset your brain's reward system. So, step 1. Just notice what your go-to distractions are. Is it your phone? Is it YouTube? Step 2. Consciously swap them for something better, like taking a quick walk instead of scrolling. And step 3, and this is a big one, design your workspace to make it harder to get distracted. Seriously, put your phone in another room.
I love this hack because it is just so simple. The hardest part of any task is just getting started, right? So don't tell yourself you have to finish the whole thing. Just make a deal with yourself. I'm only going to work on this for 10 minutes. What happens is, more often than not, once you start, you get into a flow and you just keep going.
This is a brilliant little mind trick. You basically link a reward to a task you hate. So if you can't stand doing laundry, you make a rule. You're only allowed to listen to your favorite podcast while you're folding clothes. Your brain starts to connect that dreaded task with a good feeling, and it helps break that avoidance cycle.
Ever notice how you're way more productive when you're working in a coffee shop or a library? That's body doubling. Just having another person around, even if you're not talking to them, creates the subtle sense of focus and accountability. And you can even do this from home with a friend over a video call.
And look, these aren't just some fluffy feel-good ideas. They are grounded in real science. In fact, they're basically simplified versions of techniques used in something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. A massive review of over 20 studies found that CBT, which helps people change their negative thought patterns, is super effective at reducing procrastination. So these little hacks are like mini CBT exercises you can do for yourself. Now, for the last piece of the puzzle, and honestly, this one is the most counterintuitive, but it might just be the most powerful strategy of all.
We're back to Dr. Neff's work, and it is so important. The standard advice is that to beat procrastination, you just need to be tougher on yourself, right? Be more disciplined. But the research shows the exact opposite is true. Self-compassion lowers the fear of failure, which, as we've already seen, is one of the main reasons we procrastinate in the first place.
Just think about it. When you slip up and you procrastinate, what happens when you beat yourself up? It just adds more shame and more guilt into the mix. That makes you feel worse, which makes you more likely to procrastinate again just to avoid feeling so awful. But acknowledging that you're struggling and being kind to yourself about it, that's what actually breaks the cycle.
And really, that's the big idea here. What if, instead of trying to find more willpower, we tried a little more self-compassion? Instead of more discipline, we tried to understand the emotion that's causing the delay. It's a huge shift in how we think about productivity, but it might just be the real secret to getting things done.